There are real victims here. But I also feel like that part of the real victims is also Diddy. And here's why.
P. Diddy, man, he's out. He's off.
Yeah, man.
Kinda, sorta.
Yeah.
There's some stuff here. Okay. Let's dive into the Sean Diddy Combs verdict. Mogul acquitted on sex trafficking charges, convicted on prostitution counts in bombshell New York City trial. So hip-hop icon Sean Combs was stunningly acquitted Wednesday on federal charges of forcing his former lovers to live out his degrading sexual fantasies, but found guilty of lesser prostitution raps. Combs, better known by a stage name Diddy, dodged charges that carried a possible life sentence after a 2-month trial that revealed twisted details about the mogul, including his preference for freak-offs, watching his girlfriends have grueling, drug-fueled sex romps with male escorts. Now, I've seen some wild shit, okay? But you should have seen what was happening outside that courthouse when this got announced. He had some fans, I guess they're supporting, and this is what it looked like outside. Let's check this clip. This is a male. He's rubbing baby oil on him without a shirt. Oh.
Bro, it's crazy what social media has done to people. Like, legitimately. Like, every single person there had a camera pointing at their face, like acting like a weirdo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just so weird.
Yeah. It is super weird. Now there was
a different subject, but
yeah, no, I get it. But there was 5 total charges against Diddy. The racketeering conspiracy, he was found not guilty. Sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, he was found not guilty. Sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, he had two of those counts, not guilty. But he did get found guilty on transportation for purposes of prostitution, and he had 2 counts of those. Now, again, acquitted on everything else, the more heavier life sentences, he was all acquitted on. Now, the 2 transportation for purposes of prostitution charges, there is a maximum prison sentence of 10 years on that. He's still waiting to be sentenced for that. Trying to see if he's going to get put out on bond, while awaiting the sentences charges on those. But yeah, man, it's like this chick is out there with the shirt saying a freako is not a Rico. And like, I mean, dude, like, I don't know. Like, there was a lot of evidence in favor here. I've been trying to read through. Apparently, the prosecution kind of dropped the ball on some of the shit, because that's really what it comes down to, right? You got to have a good prosecutor. But the defense attorney in this case, this is like his second RICO case he's beaten this year. So he's a pretty damn good, defense attorney. But yeah, I mean, the proof, the oil's in the bottle, as they say.
Oh, man. Did you work on that one like all night or what?
That was fresh. That was, listen, that was
off
risk.
The cuff?
Off the cuff. Right. It was a risk.
Okay.
About 50-50.
Yeah. We're going to go like 95-5. All right, look, dude. Okay.
What you got?
I've also been looking into this case. And as funny as it is, and as like fun as it is to make the jokes about the baby oil, there is a lot of real shit here, including some shit that is going to be unpopular for me to say. I'm going to say it anyway. First of all, there's videos of this dude dragging chicks down the hallway, like doing some pretty fucked up, crazy ass shit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
That's unacceptable.
There's real victims here.
Yes, yeah. There are real victims here. But I also feel like that part of the real victims is also Diddy. And here's why. Those prostitution charges that he's getting hung up on are charges where he flew in, and I'm holding up air quotes, flew in, quote unquote, models to hang out with him. Okay? Those people were not forced to get on that plane. They were not There was no coercion. They flew out to hang out with Diddy and fuck Diddy. Okay? And
receive money for it.
Yeah. Well, maybe he.
In some cases, yeah.
Listen, dude. Listen. A lot of these women, and not all, but a lot of these women, when you see them over in Europe and all these places doing all this shit, and there's no dudes around, that means there's a dude around, right? But he's just not in the picture.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
And what happens is that these women, and look, I am not judging, I'm just saying what happens, okay? These women find wealthy men to go on trips with and vacation with, and I don't think it's very unreasonable to assume that on most of these trips, there's sex involved.
Yeah.
All right? That's implied, even if it's not spoken about.
Yeah, it's not directly, but
it's implied. Hey,
sure.
You want to go to Europe, hang out on the yacht, go to Monaco F1. By the way, we're right? Like, that's the implication
that's the
of
reality of
correct.
The situation. Yeah,
and everybody knows that. Okay? That everybody knows that, unless you're living under a rock. Okay? I'm not judging. This is not me saying this, but what I will judge is that when these women voluntarily get on that plane and go on these trips or go to see Diddy or go to see any other celebrity, and these things happen consensually, they go home and they brag about it. They're like, hey, I was in France with Diddy on his yacht. And then all of a sudden, they get older and they stop getting invites and they call Diddy and he doesn't return their text. Okay. And then they get bitter.
Then it's a problem.
Then all of a sudden, I was human trafficked. I was raped. I was this. I was that. That is not okay. All right. There is responsibility that should be taken by these people, and to give them the power to prosecute someone that they consented to hang out with is insane.
Yeah.
Because it really gives any woman ammunition to attack a man later in life because they're not happy with how things turned out.
Yeah.
And that's not okay either. And the laws, and people get really pissed off when you say this, but this is true. Diddy, from now until the end of time, will be known as some sort of rapist.
Yeah.
Which,
or best case scenario, he's some weird sex shit for sure.
Dude, the point is, you don't have to be guilty of it to be labeled that and have it ruin your life. And that is where the law is f***ed up. Okay? You can accuse a man of sexual assault, of rape, and if you get enough press behind it or enough social media behind it, it's true. And then they become nuclear and nobody wants to, even touch them. It ruins lives. It ruins careers. And in a lot of cases, these are just women who are clout chasing, who are chasing rich men, which, by the way, most of these dudes got rich so they could do that shit. So you have two consenting parties, and then all of a sudden, you're a rapist or you're a human trafficker. That's not okay. So, I know that's probably the opposite of what everybody's saying here, but this happens every day. Okay? And how is it okay for a woman, let's say now, who has her own, exotic photograph, video, porn website or whatever, or sells her subscription to see these things, and then also, by the way, does bookings as a model? How is, do you know what bookings mean? Bookings mean, come on my yacht. Book me for your plane trip. And guess what we'll do? We'll do stuff.
Yep.
That's what the it means. And, I just don't think I think that's I think the system is very wrong in that way.
Yeah. I would also say too, I think society, like we have, you know, there's a societal standard that we have to address here too, right? Like, because like from society, like that's what's this whole world, you know, like you used to say, you know, sex sales, like the whole world of driven, you know, that's kind of driven society towards this way of just like, you know, that's the way, like, that's okay. That's freedom. Oh, that's a strong woman who decides to do that. Or, you know what I'm saying? Even the whole pornography thing, like, I mean.
Well, yeah, bro, look.
It all has to be rebelled against.
No, look, dude. On one hand, you're making a great point. On one hand, you know, she could do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Sex workers have rights.
Yeah, right.
Empower these women. She's taking care of herself. She's getting her bag. She's doing her thing. Okay, fine. I don't give a shit. But here's where I do give a shit. You don't get to later in life when you're not getting the same bag and not getting the same attention and not getting, you know, all of this shit. And then you get to accuse the dude of being some sort of, you know, rapist or trafficker or something. That's bullshit. Okay. So yeah, bro, it is another example of, you know, it's a cultural, by the way, I don't care. Prostitution's been a fucking thing for 12,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not judging. I don't give a shit, but let's be real about what the fuck it is. Okay. You sold your shit or implied that you were going to do certain things to receive certain things.
Yep.
And then you don't get to later in life go, oh, by the way, I was unwilling and I was raped and I was this.
Yeah, yeah.
When you come home and you post all the pictures on your fucking Instagram, I'm out here on this yacht, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Cool, man. But you're not a fucking victim.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, that's bullshit.
I didn't know any better.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. You're 30 years old.
You knew something.
Yeah.
You knew something. Yeah.
Dude, and that's a whole nother thing. Like, I was only 25. Well, 25, you're an adult.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was only 30. I didn't know better. Well, there's a lot of shit at 30 I didn't know. But that doesn't make me a fucking victim.
Yeah.
That makes me inexperienced. And that doesn't make anybody else that I hung out with deserving of to go to prison.
Right, right.
So, you know, that's the double standard that we live in. And it is a product of feminism and toxic feminism, you know. Personally, you know, everybody's like, oh, Andy's a far right winger. No, I'm actually not. I really don't give a I don't care. That's not my life, dude. I don't care. I don't care what you do. But you don't get to say lies because all of a sudden now you're not getting the same opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, lots. Yeah, bro. It's a fucked up situation. And by the way, that doesn't mean that Diddy didn't do some of those things. But there's a little of both here. You know, clearly the guy
he's interesting. He's got some issues.
Yeah, but dude, so you're telling me that Diddy had the power to make 30, 40 people have sex for 36 hours straight. So he forced them.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Bro, those people were there willingly. They were participating.
Yeah. Well, I think one piece too, and again, because.
And the only reason that people are saying, oh, you know, like all these women and dudes that came out too, the only reason that those came out is because they were afraid that their name was going to get dropped in it. Mm-hmm. And so they proactively jumped out and said, oh, Diddy raped me or he did this.
Right.
You know,
right.
And so like.
Well, and that's the piece I was going to say too, because I mean, I know there was some drug usage involved too.
You took the drugs.
You know, but I think.
That's a whole nother thing.
But that none of the charges was that. You know what I'm saying? Like
that's a whole nother thing. We see this all the time. We see women go out and get hammered. They go out to the bars. They get wasted. They're around celebrities. They have sex. And then they turn around and say, he did this and this and this. No, you got hammered and you had drunk sex with another dude, you know, that was also drinking the same amount that you drink. Who's at fault there?
You're right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Dude, the laws do not, the laws in this case, it's not even a law. It's the social implications of just accusing people of this sort of conduct that can ruin their lives. And that's not okay.
Yeah.
You know, and while, you know, we can laugh at Diddy and we can make fun of all the shit and this and that, at the end of the day, bro, his life is probably pretty up. And a lot of people don't care. They're like, fuck him. I don't give a shit. He's a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
What if that was you? What if you had worked your whole life? What if you had done all these things and accumulated all this business? And then all of a sudden, all these people that you were partying with and hanging out with in this lifestyle that everybody loved and everybody benefited from are now telling you that you're the problem. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's
I mean that's the piece too. Like I would be curious to see where it goes from here too, because I am still of the belief, bro, that this was like an Epstein situation in some degree, right? Where like those parties, that I mean, dude, everything was videotaped. They had the same markers, you know what I'm saying? And like,
hey,
and then how people reacted when it came out, all the people that didn't support him and all the people that got just real quiet, you know what I'm saying? The J-Los.
It's hard. It's hard to say that it doesn't look like that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And that's, but we haven't, that hasn't been proven. And, you know, maybe that's why these other cases got dismissed because they didn't want it to be exposed.
Yeah.
But that's total speculation, bro.
Right.
You know, like
100%.
So who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't there, but to the things that they're telling us, I still have issue with it because when everybody agrees that this is the arrangement and then people do that, like that's fucked up, you know? So,
yeah, I don't know.
And then the more successful and the more famous you are, the more vulnerable you are to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man.
Yeah. Like I said, I know there was some weird Homo sapien shit going on there too. But
yeah, but just because he's gay doesn't mean that.
Oh, you mean that's fine.
I mean,
that's fine.
I mean,
oh, it's fine.
We still like you.
You worked on that all night, didn't you?
I did.